do you honestly believe the animal can tell the difference? And the animal's like, oh, you respect me? Cool. Go for it, bro. This is part 2 of my thoughts on this Earthling Ed debate on veganism and indigenous culture. If you haven't seen part 1, check that out first.
The situation of animal farming also causes intense human suffering, and in many ways the same, and also with an add-on of what happens in a slaughterhouse. So it's a reduction of suffering, but it doesn't mean we should stop there.
Do you see? She's not even listening. She's waiting to speak. She's waiting for him to stop talking so she can speak. We all do this at least sometimes, I think. There are very few people in this world who never, ever, ever do that, who are never just talking to someone because they want to say something. She's not there to have a conversation. She's not there to listen to what he has to say. She's there to say what she has to say.
We need to focus on humans first. We need to focus on getting these undocumented immigrants, one, that, making them welcome in this country, giving them fair pay, giving them fair rights, all of these things, making them not fear being deported, because then once you get their support, they'll be much more likely to help us in reducing the harming of animals. They'd be able to help us, say, to go on strike against these slaughter facilities. It's all about how you go about things. Yes.
We can do both at the same time, though, is the argument I'd make.
We can do both at the same time. And also, those are two completely different issues. So veganism, while I definitely believe in institutional change and we should be pushing for that, it is a very individual action. We are the ones choosing what we eat constantly throughout the day, every single day. We can make a difference without institutional change, as we've seen with the rise of plant-based alternatives, with more and more people choosing, say, almond milk over cow's milk, and choosing Beyond Burgers and Impossible Meat and all that stuff. That has had nothing to do with government incentive. We're starting to see that change. Just in the last year, we had the USDA give a grant to, I believe it was Tufts University, for research into clean meat, into in vitro meat, which is awesome. But the rise of Beyond Meat and all these other companies, that has been totally due to individuals making that food, creating those companies, and individuals buying those products and showing that there is demand for those products. When it comes to migrant workers, there is not a whole lot that the individual can do. I mean, what can you do on a daily basis, multiple times a day, to make a difference? It's almost the exact opposite of veganism. We have virtually no individual power when it comes to issues like that, particularly in this country where a huge swath of people, not just white people, do not want more people moving into this country, and they don't want the people here illegally to have rights, which is terrible. And obviously we can vote. There are things we can do. I'm not saying we're totally powerless, but on a day-to-day basis, there's not a whole lot we can do. So she's almost acting as though by focusing on veganism, we're somehow taking away from those issues. We're not able to focus on them, which I think, as he says, we can do both. We can absolutely do both. They are not competing in any way.
In a perfect world, we can go about it at the same time. This is not a perfect world, and that it would be an incredibly difficult thing to do. And so...
But it's incredibly difficult, whatever, so we might as well try to do that.
That's where I think he should have asked, why is it incredibly difficult, right? Because she's just saying things like, why are those two things in such competition with one another? One really involves a lot of individual power, individual choice, and the other one really doesn't, unless she's planning on starting her own farming business where she hires exclusively migrant workers and pays them really well or something. Otherwise, there's only so much we can do there. So yeah, I think asking her why she believes these two things are in such competition with one another, and what exactly she believes she can do for migrant workers that she can't do if she goes vegan. Because again, she's supporting exploitation of migrant workers and American citizens, to be clear. She's supporting exploitation of people regardless of what she's eating. So why is it only a problem when someone says, hey, maybe you should eat less animal products? It's really hard not to say, I just don't think you really care about this. I think this is just another excuse to keep doing what you're doing, which is not something you should say. I mean, that's like a conversation ender, right? To just say, hey, I don't believe you. Don't do that. But I'm not having a conversation. I'm just making a video. So yeah, no, I don't believe her.
You are deliberately going animals first, slaughterhouses, then to the agricultural plants. It doesn't matter if you are also helping humans in that slaughterhouses, your main focus is those animals, is it not?
My main focus is to create a better agricultural system for everyone, and veganism is that, because veganism isn't just about consuming plants, it's about creating a system that reduces exploitation, and that's not just to non-human animals. So as a vegan, I wouldn't be, if we had a situation where it was just plant-based agriculture, but everything you're describing still exists, well, as vegans, I would hope, and I certainly would as a vegan, think, well, this isn't where we want to be.
The conversation is like kind of off the rails here, but I would have said, yes, in that scenario, yes, I think the cruelty to animals is so much worse than what the slaughterhouse workers are going through that absolutely my priority there is helping animals. Even if we're just talking about the sheer number of animals who experience basically total lives of suffering only to be slaughtered versus the number of people who work in slaughterhouses, no comparison. It doesn't mean I don't care about people. Obviously, I believe that people are, on the whole, more valuable than other animals. I believe I have a video focusing on degree of sentience, and virtually every person believes this, even if they say they don't. There are some vegans who say they don't. They are lying. Their actions say otherwise. So I very much care about people who are working in slaughterhouses, and I wish they did not have to do that work. It's terrible. But at the end of the day, when it comes to that issue, my priority is the animals. And I believe his is too, but it's not something you want to say, I guess.
But we shouldn't just say, hey, let's try and help the humans in slaughterhouses, but not help the animals in slaughterhouses, when we can help animals and humans in slaughterhouses by not paying for it and then help those workers.
Plant-based products from those type of companies? Do you know those companies that do that? Are you avoiding that, or are you still buying from those companies?
Well, the supply chain is murky, isn't it? And so I can't sit here and say honestly that I don't pay for that to happen, because I can't honestly say that. But that doesn't mean that I agree with it. And if I had the choice in front of me in a supermarket to say, hey, this comes from here and this comes from here, if I had that choice, I would buy that. But we don't have that choice yet because the supply chains are so, ubiquitously bad.
So I'm not sure what he's saying. I mean, we know where food comes from in terms of where the company that's selling the product, whether it's Beyond Meat or I think Tyson has a few vegan products now. Maybe he's saying that if you buy a product from, say, Tyson, who also obviously makes meat, slaughters animals, are you supporting the slaughter of those animals when you buy a vegan product of theirs? I would say very likely no. Often the way these giant companies, and to be clear, Tyson is a giant company. It's not Beyond Meat. It's not Impossible Burger. They have separate arms. They have an arm that is for their I think it's called Raised and Rooted, right? And that's their vegan protein, or it might be vegetarian. I can't remember. I think it has egg or something, like Morningstar Farms, right? That's their arm where they deal with that stuff. Often the money that is made from those products is going into that section of the company. It's going into funding those products. And also clearly that the company on the whole is paying attention to what is selling well. And if vegan products are selling well, they're going to make more of them, to the point where one day maybe they start focusing on plant-based proteins instead of animal-based proteins. It's kind of this idea that I've heard some vegans express. They believe that companies like Tyson are making vegan products just so they can fund slaughterhouses, just so they can fund factory farming, because they have such a moral stance, I guess, or just such a desire to continue exploiting animals. It's just a very strange view. Tyson wants to make money. If that means exploiting animals, fine. If it means making plant-based proteins, fine. They just want to make money. If you really believe that every person involved in animal exploitation is just wholly evil and their whole point in doing it is to exploit animals, I don't even know what to say to you. You have such a horrible view of humanity. Most people are not like that. Most people, our goal is not to just be evil. Our goal, at least in Tyson's case, is to make money, which some people do consider evil. And I think to provide food for people. And unfortunately, they see animals as a means to an end. And I'm sure some of them have very little regard for animals. But I don't think the point is just to, let's kill as many animals as we can. Let's make as many animals suffer as we can. The point is to make money. And by buying these products from these companies, we are telling these companies that, hey, you can make money by not exploiting animals. You can make money by making soy and pea-based burgers or whatever. So buying these products is ultimately a very good thing, I believe, even if some of that money is going to supporting factory farming.
Are companies that do that, but there are also companies that don't. There are organically grown.
But they still cause harm. They still end up in the same slaughterhouses. They're still killed in the same way.
No. I'm talking about those that are like very local, very.
Yeah, I know.
They kill animals again in a humane way. Again, the idea is that.
But what does humane mean? When we say humane.
If you kill them in a humane way where they don't feel pain, in a halal way, right? They don't feel pain, where they are cooked a certain way, right? They don't have any added stuff.
I love how she's equating all of that, like not only being killed in a humane way, but also how they're cooked after the fact and like the preservatives and whatnot they contain, as if those two things are equal. Again, I don't think she really cares about animal welfare at all, frankly.
What is halal? How do they kill animals halal?
They kill them without pain.
How describe the process?
That was perfect. That is a perfect time to ask that question. If that's her position, that, hey, halal, well, please explain it.
I could not tell you specifically because I'm not Muslim.
But you can tell me that they die without pain, but you can't tell me how they're killed.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't really know what it is, but okay. And it's not as a gotcha thing, although it's certainly, I'm sure on some level he felt like, oh, gotcha, bitch. It's a way to show the person that, hey, you're using this as an argument and you don't really know what it is. You don't really know what it entails.
But you can tell me that they die without pain, but you can't tell me how they're killed.
Yes, because I have Muslim friends and I ask them, I'm like, what does halal mean? They say basically they're killed in a very specific way where they, as less pain as possible.
Can I tell you how they're killed? They have their throats cut, but they're not rendered unconscious.
Be careful talking to vegans about animal husbandry practices, whether you're talking about factory farming or something else. There is a good chance we know a lot more about it than you do.
But, okay, so again, that's all about anatomy.
So now she's just moving the goalposts instead of acknowledging, oh, I didn't know that. Maybe I need to rethink some things. Then it's okay, well, whatever, that doesn't really matter. Let's talk about something else.
Do you think that sounds compassionate?
It's more compassionate than other ways of killing them.
It is, but is it more compassionate than not killing them?
They're gonna. The base of the problem is if you have respect to the animal, right?
Can you respectfully cut their throat for an unnecessary reason?
That's what indigenous people do. Indigenous people hunt in a respectful way.
So that's where I wish he would maybe say, do you think that's valuable to the animal? Do you, not talking about indigenous beliefs, but do you honestly believe that the animal can tell the difference between a person killing them respectfully and a person just saying, fuck you, and killing them? Like, do you honestly believe the animal can tell the difference? And the animal's like, oh, you respect me? Cool. Go for it, bro.
Locally grown ranches,
Which
right?
still go to the same slaughterhouses.
They do not go to the same slaughterhouses, my dude.
They do.
I'm not even sure why she's still so confident in her beliefs around animal farming when she didn't even know what halal meant after insisting that she did, and that she has Muslim friends, so she knows what it means. You think that would give her make her a little bit more humble and say, okay, maybe I don't know as much as I thought I did about animal rearing.
They stay at the ranch. These are their own meat suppliers. They grow and kill their own meat.
They may have local slaughterhouses, but it doesn't matter. They're killed in the exact same way.
I remember watching a documentary about people who were farming chickens and, literally cutting the heads off the chickens themselves and selling a little bit of the meat. But these are tiny operations. The vast majority of organically grown meat is ending up in the exact same slaughterhouses. By the exact same, I mean the methods of killing the animal are the same. A slaughterhouse does have to be organically certified, but that has to do with not using prohibited substances, keeping the meats separate, the animal separate. So if you process conventional as well, you have to keep the animal separate and the meat separate. It has nothing to do with how the animals are ultimately killed. And we've seen over and over and over again that these so-called humane operations, these humane farms, are anything but. We're talking about commodifying sentient beings. When you commodify sentient beings, maximizing profits and minimizing resources is always going to mean caring about animal welfare as little as possible, packing them into spaces as small as possible, making them grow as fast as possible, making them produce as fast as possible.
Again, least pain as possible, so they're cutting the throat at the right place where the cow honestly just falls unconscious. They don't feel
They bleed out.
Again, she should know better at this point that she doesn't know much about this. I said she doesn't really care about animal welfare, but I think she does, which is why she's doing this, right? Because if she really didn't care, you would just say, well, whatever. I mean, maybe she wouldn't, because you don't want to come across as a total psychopath to people, but I think she does care. That's why she's trying to say, no, it is humane. The cow falls unconscious immediately, right? She doesn't want there to be a lot of pain for the animal, which is good. I think the vast majority of people want that to be the case, right? They want to keep eating meat, but they also want it to be very compassionate and not harmful for the animal, which is good. That means we have a starting point of, hey, people care about animals and not just dogs and cats. Maybe they care about cows and chickens less, but they do care to some degree. And I think that's great. That means we have a starting point. That means we have a place, a means to reach people when it comes to farm animals and animal welfare.
Is it compassionate to unnecessarily kill someone else? Is that compassionate?
Someone else? No, it's an animal.
But we're animals too.
We are animals too, but we are different from animals in that we have conscious thought.
So do they. They're conscious.
Wow, she doesn't believe that animals wow. Maybe she doesn't know what conscious thought means, but that's saying that animals are not conscious. I mean, if you don't believe they're conscious, well then yeah, kill them however you like.
With consensual worldview and with animism, right? Again, something indigenous people, most indigenous tribes believe in, there is a difference.
I find it so interesting. As soon as he starts asking her really important questions and something that's hard for her to answer, she goes back to what indigenous people believe. It's really hard to say that she is not just using other people's beliefs as a way to not admit that he's right.
I myself am trying to follow the consensual worldview.
Finally, with only like 6 minutes left, she says, okay, this is what she believes. Okay, well, I feel a bit better. She's not just using the belief system. She actually believes it herself. She's wrong, but it's better, I guess.
So I know that they living their full life, they were not stuck in 2x2 pens or whatever, but they were still respected, right?
But they don't live their full life. They're killed, cows can live to 20, 25, they're killed at 12 to 24 months. And respect is a mutual thing. When you sat down with me, we've had a respectful conversation because we've listened, we've engaged with each other. We haven't shouted over each other, we haven't cursed, we haven't been nasty, and that's respectful because it's a mutual. I'm trying to understand your thoughts and your feelings, and I feel like you're reciprocating and doing the same for me.
He is such a sweetheart. But I feel like on some level he knows that's bullshit. She's not listening to him.
But what we do to animals isn't respectful because it's a non-consensual thing. We force them into these environments for something that we want.
Not necessarily non-consensual. Again, with the consensual worldview, the moose will gladly give himself up to the hunter.
But does the cow gladly walk into the slaughterhouse and present their throat?
No, technically, no.
So I would ask her, why do you believe this? Why do you believe that the moose, what leads you to believe this? Do you have evidence that this is true? And then I would ask, well, is that the meat you're eating? Are you going out and hunting the moose who said, yes, please take me? How is she able to verify this meat is a result of this respectful, consensual thing? How is she able to verify that? Even if you believe that humane meat is possible, how are you able to verify that this meat is being procured in a humane way?
You have, for instance, the Comanche tribes, right, who hunted buffalo or the bison. They hunted them, some could argue, in an inhumane way. They would chase them off cliffs. They would, they would kill them. They would feel harm. But they still thanked the animal. They still took everything from that animal. If we took everything from the cow and put it to use instead of just taking the meat and throwing the rest away.
We don't. We boil the bones down, turn it into gelatin. We do use everything.
A capitalist society, it's profit incentive. If you have stuff that can be used, you're going to use it. You're going to put it in pet food or whatever. You're going to take that gelatin and put it into fruit snacks. And again, the animal doesn't know. The animal is dead. The animal doesn't know what you're doing with his remains. Now, I will say, I tweeted about this recently. I was watching some like house flipping show with my partner a while ago. It was like a really decrepit house. They went into the basement and there was a basement freezer, like a chest freezer full of rotten meat. And even though I know it doesn't matter to the animal what happens to that meat, it does feel worse to me that, wow, that animal went through a life of suffering, was slaughtered, and then no one even bothered to eat them. Their remains end up in a fucking freezer in this old, nasty house. It feels a little bit better to me if that meat at least had been eaten by someone. It at least had served some purpose. And certainly there would be less waste if the people who bought that had used the meat instead of buying more stuff, right? Whether it was vegan or not. It does feel more disrespectful. But that doesn't mean that it's respectful to have eaten the meat instead. When we have other options, you're treating animals horribly, whether you eat the meat or throw it away.
Would it be different if I were to say grow my own chickens and kill my own chickens and eat them?
No, because we're still killing them. We're still taking their life from them when we don't have to.
I'm not needlessly taking their life. I gotta eat.
But you don't have to eat them.
That can be argued, right?
Well, no. For most people, it can't be argued. That's the point. For most people, it can't be, and that's the point I'm making. For most people, they don't have to cut the throat of the chicken. They could just eat something else instead.
Yeah, okay, if you don't want to eat meat, don't eat meat, all right? That's the fair thing. But you trying to, you say broaden the horizons of these people, but really you're wanting to make them feel guilty for consuming these meat products.
No, I'm not trying to make anyone feel guilty. I'm just having a conversation where I'm asking people why they're not vegan and trying to establish their views on it. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty.
Again, I really admire his ability to just calmly answer and to calmly say no. And again, she keeps changing the subject. She won't just come out and say, oh, okay, you're right, we don't have to eat meat. She has to go, well, okay, but you just want us to feel guilty.
Indigenous people see that rock as a soul. It has a soul,
sure,
right? And so they also would not pick up a rock and throw it on the ground.
I'm not saying that I would do that, but I'm just saying that I would feel less guilty because I recognize that action causes less harm. And the feeling of guilt that you have comes from the concept that there's a notion of harm being inflicted.
So what I would encourage you to do is to look into cosmocentric worldview and to look into how these indigenous people have lived their lives.
It's so weird that she keeps saying indigenous. She's admitted that this is her view. It's very strange that she keeps harping on. Again, it feels like trying to use indigenous people as a shield and to try to add some authority or weight to it, and like you can't criticize it because it's indigenous. It's not just my view, it's indigenous. All she had to say was this is what I believe. It comes from here, certain indigenous tribes believe this and I agree with it, and then go from there and then explain why you agree with it instead of just continually harping on, I don't know. And I just want to say, I believe that there is a difference between appreciating and appropriating. I think in this case, she absolutely is appropriating. I believe she is using it as an excuse not to be vegan, even if she does believe in this worldview herself. Again, her constant mention of it to me comes across as her using that as a shield and trying to add some amount of authority or to make him maybe feel less comfortable challenging it, because it's not just her view. It's a cultural view that you're not supposed to challenge, right? But certainly I have no qualms with a white person, adopting that worldview themselves. I mean, it's a stupid worldview. That's the issue I have. I don't really care who believes it. It's stupid, no matter who believes it. And I have to say, it was weird that he said he would feel less guilty.
I would feel less guilty because I recognize that action causes less harm.
Why would you feel guilty for throwing a rock? I mean, maybe you feel guilty because you could have broken something that matters, or you could have hit someone, right? Someone, a sentient being who feels something, right? But you don't feel less guilty. You don't, in terms of the rock itself, you shouldn't feel any guilt when it comes to the rock because it's an it. It does not feel anything. It's not a he or a she. It's an it.
Going into a supermarket and buying a steak is nothing like what they're doing. The only thing is an animal has died. But in that situation, it's justified. But in this situation, it isn't.
I gotta get plus.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much, Q. Have a great day.
Yeah, very respectful. So that's the video. Overall, I'm a huge fan of Earthling Ed, I guess, based on that one video. I thought he did a very good job. Certainly admire his ability to stay calm, his ability to express himself. I think he does speak quite quickly. There were a couple times there where I thought maybe he could have slowed down a little bit, because she was obviously having such a hard time hearing him in the first place. And again, I think there are certain points where asking more questions would have made for a better conversation. But again, at the end of the day, I don't think she was there to have a conversation. I think she was there to say what she wanted to say about Indigenous people and migrant workers, and just to get herself off the hook when it comes to eating less animal products. Anyway, thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, if any of you have any experience with the Texas educational system and that whole teaching that fast food is factory farm, but like other meat, I guess, that you buy from the grocery store isn't, I would love to hear more about that, or other places in the US where maybe they teach that. If you like the video, give it a like, consider subscribing, hit the bell if you want to be notified when I upload. Thank you so much to all my patrons at patreon.com/unnaturalvegan. I do upload 2 little exclusive videos there a month for $5 plus patrons, just talking about just kind of random stuff that's going on with me mostly. And yeah, thanks again, guys. New video soon.